Emotional laziness in a relationship is devastating. I want to talk to you about it. I'm Dr. David Hawkins, director of the Marriage Recovery Center and the Emotional Abuse Institute. Emotional laziness is when one partner simply fails to show up emotionally. When we're talking about a relationship, we're talking about involvement, we're talking about investment, we're talking about participation. And yet there are any number of individuals who fail to take that responsibility on. They are emotionally lazy. They're coasting. Why do they do this? Why is there a person who is often, there's a partner who is over-functioning and there's a partner who is under-functioning? And the partner that's over-functioning is trying diligently to get their mate to participate emotionally. They're essentially begging for involvement. And yet the emotionally lazy individual tells themselves that they're doing enough, and they're not. Now, that's called denial. You know the acronym, don't even notice I am lying to myself. And so they tell themselves that they're doing enough, and they rehearse to themselves, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I'm working a full-time job. Hey, that's something, right? Not much, no. And so they tell themselves they're doing enough when they're not. And this emotional laziness then creates this lack in the relationship. I've done videos on future faking and breadcrumbing, where the abusive partner gives just enough to have their mate hang in there, but their mate is starving emotionally, and the relationship is actually quite literally dying. It's dying because, the analogy of the body of water that doesn't have fresh water flowing into it, it becomes stagnant, right? It becomes stagnant. It becomes a cesspool. Well, a marriage, a relationship can be much like that. If there's not new nourishment and nutrient and life-giving efforts, then the relationship is dying. And the neglected partner is dying too. All right, what to do if you're in a relationship with an emotionally lazy person? Well, first, you've got to confront this dynamic, this over-functioning, under-functioning dynamic. You've got to confront it. And you've got to establish very, very clear expectations. And that's going to require some very challenging conversations. You will need to say to the under-functioning, emotionally lazy person, you're not giving me enough. You're not. And when that person tries to flip it back on them and blame shift and minimize, rationalize, justify, all that kind of stuff, you can't get pulled into all of that junk. No, establish very clear expectations for creating a balanced relationship. Number two, I want you to guard against over-functioning. Over-functioning, where you petition again and again and again and again and again and again. I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to do that. How do you guard against doing that? Number three is you've got to create clear accountability for action or inaction. Exactly what are the expectations And what will happen if those expectations are not met? It's called accountability. Accountability, or boundaries without consequences, are not boundaries, are they? They are just complaints. So your boundaries need to have some consequences attached to it. Oh, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, my mate doesn't care about boundaries. Well, at some point in time, they will care about boundaries. If the edges are sharp enough, boundaries cut, they hurt, they pinch, they grab. We feel them. So again, if you're in an emotionally lazy relationship, I want you to confront the emotional laziness. Name it for what it is. I want you to establish very clear expectations for creating a balanced relationship. How is the overfunctioner going to pull back? How is the underfunctioner going to show up? I want you to guard against overfunctioning. And then finally, there's got to be very clear accountability for change. All right. Contact our client care team if we can be of any further assistance to you, and click on that link to subscribe to future videos. All right. Take care. God bless.